Hello, everyone. Welcome to Therapeutic Wisdom from the AKASH here on Awoken TV. Happy Friday. How's everybody doing? I hope you're all well. I'm just going to take a moment to share this out. And if you would like, we're going to be talking about guilt today. So anybody that you know that could benefit from talking about guilt, I would appreciate you sharing this video so that they can get lots of love. Say hello if you guys are popping on. Say hello and where you're tuning in from. I love connecting with the audience and being able to tune into your needs and getting an idea of how you're feeling. So if you guys haven't been on Awoken TV before, definitely go to www.awoken.tv because it's like a spiritual or metaphysical Netflix. You're going to find videos there from conscious filmmakers and light workers. You're going to find courses there and all sorts of metaphysical goodies, okay? You can also go to the App Store because they're also on the App Store, okay? And my name is Mazzotta. I am the Akashic therapist, which means that I have been a therapist for almost 20 years now and have found much greater effectiveness and efficiency in healing through the space of the Akashic Records. So I've integrated that into my practice. So definitely say hi if you're here. And let me know what experiences you've had with guilt. I guarantee that all of us have had experiences with guilt. So just raise your hand in the comments and let me know because I am happy to support you on this topic. And I literally have so many notes. Sorry, I'm still sharing this out. I have so many notes that came through from the Akashic Records last night as I was planning this live. So you guys have lots of goodies, and I might be kind of passing back and forth between my notes and connecting with you so that I make sure to share all of the goodness that the Akashic Records want to share with you today. Okay, so the first thing that I want to share about guilt is that it's really only warranted if you have done something to intentionally cause someone else harm. So the vast majority of the time, this is not an issue for people, right? Are we really intentionally doing things to harm other people? Consciously, like thinking about it, planning it out. Most of the time, no, right? So a lot of the time, guilt is not warranted. It's one of the most chronically habitual emotions that exist in our world. So chronically habitual. But what's beautiful about habits is that we can rewrite them, right? We don't have to keep the habits that we have developed over time. In fact, it only takes 21 days to make a new habit. So you can just make a new habit, okay? But we're gonna talk about all the different layers of guilt today and how it shows up in your life and different ways that you can tackle it, okay? So, all right, so when you realize and you have that sense of awareness to say, all right, guilt is only warranted when I have intentionally done something to harm someone else or to destroy a situation in someone's life or just in general. You then ask yourself, all right, is this really mine to carry? Is this guilt really mine to carry? Because I'm not intentionally doing something to harm someone else. So is this my guilt or is this guilt from my parents who may have experienced a pattern of habitual guilt? Is this guilt from ancestors? Is this guilt from past lifetimes? Okay, so really asking yourself, is this something that I really need to be carrying around? Is this even mine? Okay, before you even dive into it and analyze this and assess whether this is yours to do something about, you want to say, all right, do I need to just release this? Do I need to do deeper work to release this? Okay. Ultimately, what guilt is about is how much you can love. It's a sign and it's a cue to us to show us how much we love. Right? Because if you're feeling guilty about something, it also means that you really, really care about the person or the situation. So I want you to, first of all, just feel a sense of compassion for yourself that you love so much and so largely that you want to do right by this other person or by this situation or by something that matters to you. It highlights your values. Okay, so it helps remind you of what your values are. And values are something that we can, again, always adjust. Okay, so it may prompt you to look at your values, to evaluate your values. I wrote something down about this that came through last night, so I just want to make sure that I do right by the AKASH, right? Okay, so, all right. So yeah, so you can just kind of reassess, all right, so if this is something I'm feeling guilty about and it's not something that I'm carrying, is there a belief system underneath that I need to shift? Is there a value system underneath that I need to shift? Because feeling guilty is not productive, right? It doesn't get us anywhere. In fact, one of my standard rules in my life is never make any decisions out of anxiety or guilt. Right? Get yourself to a space where you're more aligned, more centered, breathing more deeply, and then make a decision. Okay? Because you're not coming from a rational space. You're not coming from your space of best judgment when you're coming from a place of guilt or anxiety. The other thing I want to share is that I don't know how many of you have seen the emotional frequency triangle. There's a bunch of them online. So if you just Google emotional frequency triangle, you'll be able to find it. The one I typically use is the one by Omega. But guilt is almost all the way down on the bottom of that triangle. And fear is actually higher than that. And anger is higher than that. So shifting from guilt into fear or into anger is more productive, because people say, okay, well, I feel guilty because I'm actually just really afraid of losing this person, of losing this relationship, of losing this situation, of losing money, or whatever it happens to be. And so you're really, really afraid of losing it. Well, good. Okay, step into the fear then. Let's step into the fear instead of the guilt. And then we can do something with the fear, because fear, I talked about fight or flight last week, so you guys can check that out if you haven't watched it. But fear is something that it does mobilize us to a degree, whereas guilt is more paralyzing, right? Guilt can paralyze us more and really lead to a lot more self-criticism, self-judgment, self-blame, and ultimately can turn into depression pretty easily. Okay, so if you shift into fear, it's an energy that it has a restless energy, right? Fear's got a restless energy, but it's also got, you know, the fast heart rate and feeling like, okay, I got to do something. I got to move. I got to distract myself, right? So if you move into fear, if you move into anxiety, you're then activating yourself. Whereas guilt is more of this like, ugh, kind of feeling, right? But fear, you're actually activating yourself a little bit, which brings up material to work with, brings up material to release, what have you. Okay. So that's one of the things I wanted to say. The other thing in terms of this idea that guilt highlights and cues us to how big our container for loving is, right? Really shows us how loving we are and that we really care about people and situations in our lives. So it's really guiding us to expand our capacity to love, because it's almost like, all right, well, I'm getting nervous because I don't want to lose this person. I don't want to lose this situation. And I'm feeling guilty because of something I said or something I did or something that unfolded. So expand your capacity to love. Make it bigger. You can expand your capacity to love. I remember when I had my first child and I was madly in love. And I was like, wow, I had no idea that love could feel like this, that love could be this big and this intimate. And when I was pregnant with my son, my second child, I was like, how am I going to feel? How am I going to be able to love him at the same level that I love my daughter? I just thought there's no way that I can love him that much. And then guess what? He came and my capacity to love expanded. And then I had my third child and my capacity to love expanded. And then I entered a new phase of my life and my capacity to love my husband expanded even more. And then I entered a new phase of my life when I got really sick and I expanded my capacity to love myself. So the expansion of our capacity to love is infinite. We can expand it. I mean, we're always receiving this loving energy from the universe. We're always receiving this loving energy from the Akash. And we have the ability to make it as big as we want it, right? We can make our container to hold all of this love as big as we want it. So what I do is I breathe into, my coach actually encouraged me to do this, to breathe into my lower dantian, which is the lower energy center in Taoism. And it's right at the base of your spine, kind of your root chakra, sacral chakra area. And just really breathing into that space to be very intentional about expanding my capacity to love, just so that I have a focal point, right? An area of expansion to be intentional about. Okay. And if you guys are making comments on Emerge Healing and Wellness or Akashic Academy, I am not seeing them because I'm going live on Awoken TV. So I just wanted to make sure that you know I wasn't ignoring you. So if you guys want me to see your comments, jump over to Awoken TV. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to say about guilt, well, not that I wanted to say, actually, that the Akashic Records wanted to say as I check in with my notes here, is when you're in a situation and you feel guilty, check in with your expectations. Where are your expectations in this situation? Are you expecting something from the relationship? Are you expecting a certain outcome? Are you outcome focused for the situation that you're engaged in? Okay, so you want to check in with your expectations and see if you need to adjust them. Because if you're feeling disappointed, or if you're feeling disappointed in yourself or guilty, then after you've already checked in with your values, you want to also check in with your expectations, not just your expectations. And whether you're outcome oriented or whether you're looking for something out of this relationship or situation, checking in with your goals, right? But also checking into the other person's expectations. Are you taking on their expectations as your own and expecting that you need to meet those? That's very people-pleasing energy, right? Very accommodating energy. Well, I need to meet those expectations so that I keep the relationship or so that the situation runs smoothly. Well, who says? That's their stuff that they're setting expectations. You don't have to meet those. You need to stand in your power. That's what's going to serve you and everybody else in this situation. You don't owe anyone anything. The only person you owe something to is yourself. Love, attention, compassion, intention. Okay? So when we ask that question of, is this mine to carry? We're not just looking at our history in this life and in past lives and in ancestral healing and our generations back, but we're also looking at the actual people in the situation. Am I carrying their expectations? Am I adopting their expectations? And thinking that if I don't meet them, then I am bad or I am a failure. Okay? So when we feel disappointed, 99.9% of the time, it's because we have set expectations that are unrealistic to meet. And they might be unrealistic just because the person that we're in this interaction with doesn't have the capacity or isn't willing or at a space in their lives where they're able to offer that to us, or the situation doesn't lend itself to give us what it is that we're expecting. Okay, so make sure you're not taking on other people's expectations and feeling like you need to own that and you need to rise up to that. No, you take your values and stand on your soapbox, stand on your pedestal, and feel strong about them. Advocate for them. Advocate for yourself. Because we advocate for our kids. We advocate for people who may have less of a voice in this world. But how often do we advocate for ourselves? I learned this when I was pregnant. And I was like, oh, I'm taking such good care of my body and I'm eating so well. And, you know, I'm being really conscious of taking care of me and being really gentle and patient and compassionate towards myself in ways that I never was before. And I'm like, why don't people do this all the time? Right? Like, why do we wait until we're carrying another human to do it? And then when my first child was born, it was like, no, you're not going to talk to her that way. Or no, I'm not taking her and putting her in that situation because then she could feel this or that, right? We need to do that for ourselves. We need to advocate for ourselves. You are your own best advocate. You know why? Because you're the only one who knows your deepest values, your expectations, your capacity to love, all of these things that we've been talking about so far this morning. You're the only one who really knows those intimately. And if you don't know them intimately, then there's your homework. There's your job. Okay? All right, so advocacy, opening your mouth, advocating for yourself and standing firmly on your values. Because then those people can rise to meet you rather than you kind of lowering yourself or shifting over to say, all right, I'm going to adjust to their expectations or to their values. Sorry, I need a drink. Stand strongly in yours so that they can rise up to meet you. That's an act of service. That's an act of service to them. Because then they get to heighten their vibration. You're offering them an opportunity. You're offering them an opportunity to heighten their vibration, to rise to meet you where you are, And it's not selfish. It's a gift. It's a gift to offer them an invitation. The other thing that I've learned about guilt, how many of you justify yourself when you're feeling guilty? You either get defensive or justify yourself. They go together. When we get defensive, we're justifying ourselves. So put a 1 in the comments if you've justified yourself. We've all done it. But guess what justification is? This is a truth bomb. Justification is manipulation. You are manipulating the situation to get your needs met. So manipulation carries a very negative connotation. It doesn't need to. Okay, we all, from the time that we are infants, manipulate our environment to get our needs met, right? We look up with those little goo goo gaga eyes and we're like, oh yes, this is, I want that treat or something, right? We learn habits and behaviors and ways of being that allow us to get our needs met. That's a good thing. This is evolutionary, friends. We need to get our needs met so that we can develop appropriately, so that we can grow and expand and become functional humans on this planet. Okay, but when you're getting into this justifying mode, explaining away, you're trying to manipulate the other person or the situation to align with what it is you need. So guess what that means? You just need to open your mouth. Hi, Georgette. Thanks for being here. Comments aren't showing up on the computer, but they are on my phone. Thanks for saying hi, honey. Glad to know the comments are working here. So yeah, so if you are finding yourself justifying yourself or being defensive, guess what you need to do? Open your mouth. Be more bold and direct. And that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you realize this and then you just open your mouth and bleh. Okay, take a moment, please. Take a breath, because emotions are running. By the time you've realized this, emotions are running because they're cues for us, right? They help us to understand what is going on in our experience. So you sit back, take a deep breath, identify your need. What is it that I'm looking for in this situation? How does this align with my values? How does this align with my expectations or the other person's expectations? Whose am I carrying? Are they mine? Are they theirs? Are they past life? Are they my parents? Are they generational, etc.? Are they societal? Are they cultural? Okay, and then once you identify that need, it's funny because one of the things, I'd say one of the biggest issues that comes up with my clients is when we have this conversation and they're like, well, I don't know what the hell I need. I'm like, well, there you go. That's part of your problem. You got to sit down and figure out what you need. That's why we're talking about values, expectations, capacity to self-love, how much you are loving yourself, capacity to love others, expanding that for yourself, realizing that you have infinite possibility to expand this, okay? So that's an exercise in itself to sit down and figure out what you need. What is it that you need? What brings you joy? What brings you fulfillment? What lights you up? What makes you feel exhilarated? Okay. Because when we get into this justification mode, we're proving ourselves. We're proving ourselves to ourselves, and we're proving ourselves to other people. We think we're trying to prove ourselves to other people. We think we're trying to prove ourselves in a situation. But really, we're trying to prove ourselves to ourselves because we don't fully trust in our position. We don't fully trust in that value or that expectation. Okay? So don't get into proving energy, guys. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing the Akashic Records brought through. In terms of this, when we get bold and direct, right? So we have this justification pattern, we shift back, we figure out what we need, and then we get bold and direct about it. We request it. We get specific, get concrete, get as specific as you can, okay? You're less likely to be disappointed and guilty. So we assess what we need and we get it. The only people who are going to give a shit about you being bold and direct are the ones who are benefiting. You guys have probably seen memes like this all over Instagram and Facebook. The ones that are benefiting from you keeping your mouth shut and staying passive. Do you really want those people in your life? Are those really people who are enhancing your empowerment, who are helping you become the best version of yourself, right? And the bottom line is people feel safer and get more out of relationships when there's very, very clear and direct boundaries. They just feel safer. It's just like when you're parenting a teenager or dealing with a teenager in one shape or form, whether you're teaching them or coaching them or interacting with them in some way, and they balk at all of the limits and the structure, and they're like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this. But underneath, they really don't. Subconsciously, they need the structure. They want the structure. It makes them feel safe. Okay? So know that, again, this is an act of service. Look at all these acts of service I'm giving you today. And all of these acts of service fuel you and other people. So you get to do both. And then you aren't left disappointed and other people aren't left disappointed. And when somebody comes back at you, when you're getting bold and direct with them and they're pissy, that's an opportunity for them to explore what's going on with themselves. And if they choose not to do that, that's their decision. But you can stand firmly on your soapbox that we talked about with your value system and say, I am so proud of myself. I'm so proud of myself for honoring my values, my expectations that I have now shifted and adjusted to my level of need, my level of love for myself. I have expanded my capacity to love myself by doing this. Okay? All right. Yeah, and that's the other thing, because if you give people the wiggle room with your boundaries, they'll take it. They will take it for sure. And then it becomes this cycle, right? Because you give them the wiggle room. They then expect more from you because you've kind of loosened the boundaries, right? You've loosened these boundaries. So they're like, oh, good. I got more wiggle room here. So they're going to take it. Why wouldn't they? They're humans. I'm so thirsty today. Right? And then their expectations grow. It's like, oh, I got wiggle room. I can maybe slide in here and I can slide in there. And they're not being malicious, right? It's just human behavior. Because those people who don't know their own needs and don't know how to figure out how to meet their own needs are always looking and scanning the environment for areas where they can get their needs met, especially people who are feeling desperate. So they're going to be like, oh, I can sneak in here. I can sneak in there because that's going to meet my need. And they're looking for that instant gratification. But if your boundaries are firm, they can't get in. Okay? Because then they sneak in when you have that wiggle room. They sneak in. And then you don't meet those expectations because they're not really what you need and want. And then you feel guilty. And then they get pissy. And then it becomes this endless cycle. So the answer is close it up. Tighten it up with your values, your expectations, your boundaries. Your boundaries for yourself, for preserving your own self-love and your own energy and your own creativity. Give it to you first. Then if you got a little bit left over, you can give it to other people. It's just like that analogy of let people take from your saucer and not your cup, right? You fill up your cup, and if you let people scoop out of your cup, you're depleting yourself. But if you fill up your cup and it's overflowing into the saucer, they can just go nuts. It's not impacting you. You have an overflow, right? I love that one. Lots of memes on that one too. Okay, a couple little tips here in addition to what I've already shared. One is remove the word should from your vocabulary. Okay? Anytime that we use the word should, we're setting ourselves up to feel guilty and disappointed in ourselves. Because ultimately, guilt is about us feeling disappointed in ourselves. Okay, so take the word should out. Every time it comes up in your vocabulary, just nope, shift. I say don't should all over yourself, right? Don't should all over yourself. There are no shoulds. There are no requirements in this world for you to become the best that you can be. Okay. Let me know if you guys have questions, if they're coming up so far, because I have another couple tips to give you before we close up today. So removing the word should, some people even say removing the word could, although it depends, because you can also say, yeah, no, I think removing the word could is probably a good idea too, for the most part. There are a couple areas where you can use that, but should is definitely a no-go. So remove that from your vocabulary, because it sets up, you're setting up an expectation like I should do this, that you're obviously, I should do this based on what? Your expectations, your value system, other people's expectations, their value system, society's expectations, its value system. Right? So that's why we want to remove that word. Okay. Stop over apologizing. Stop it. When you get into over apologizing, you are once again shrinking yourself, making yourself tiny and inadequate. You're just going to feel like crap. Okay. Instead of over apologizing, why don't you look at yourself again and do that assessment of your values, your expectations, and your capacity to self-love? Okay? Because you're getting into justification mode again, but you're trying to manipulate the situation. You're not doing it on purpose, but you are. You're trying to manipulate the situation to get what you want. It's almost like, well, if I feel, and this is what your subconscious is thinking. You're not doing this on purpose, but it's like, well, if I shift into guilty mode and I'm like cowering over here and I'm feeling really small, then the other person's going to feel bad for me and they're going to have compassion. Well, guess what? You don't want the pity card. That doesn't make you feel empowered. It leads to learned helplessness. Which sets up a whole nother cycle. Because then you're in learned helplessness and then people have lower expectations of you and then you judge yourself for that. Right? So it just becomes this cycle. All right. Last thing that I wanted to share here today. Well, that the Akashic Records wanted to share here today. When you're in this doubting place, you want to return to who you are, right? Return to that soul version of who you are. Connect to your higher self. Go into meditation, enter the Akashic Records, do Kundalini yoga, anything that gets you to that connection with your higher self, and identify what are your core values, not just on a human level based on your life that you're living here, but in alignment with your soul's purpose, the reason that you're here on this planet, okay? How do your human values align with your soul's values, with your soul's purpose? How have you demonstrated these in your life? Are you demonstrating these in your life? How can you align more to them? Okay, so it's like we have the human value system and then we have the soul's value system. So if you're not able to get out of it, you return to that, okay? Because that's just going to help you realign and get back on track. And have some perspective, really, higher perspective on this. So you don't have to put so much work in. You don't have to work so hard racking your brain trying to figure out what are my expectations, what are my needs, what are my goals, all of this. Just ask your higher self, my friends. They know a hell of a lot better than we do, no matter how smart we are, no matter how many skills we have. Okay? And finally, how many of you have ever jumped into savior mode? Savior mode! Oh my gosh, I've been there so many times. Are you kidding me? I'm a therapist. Like the first half of my career, I was in savior mode. And then prior to that, I was in savior mode, hence becoming a therapist. And savior mode is about us, right? It's about us trying to save ourselves. Don't put that shit on other people, right? It's a way of avoiding our own work. It's a way of not seeing our own stuff. And again, we're not doing it on purpose, guys. Don't use this as an opportunity to blame yourself or be hard on yourself, okay? It's just heightening your awareness so you can look even more deeply. And that's why I love this energy work so much. I love it so much because it gets so deep, right, under the surface, that stuff that we don't even realize we're doing. It's become so automatic for us over the course of our lives, right? It's all we know. It's what we're used to, okay? So it feels really good to help other people. It feels really good. It feels like, well, I heal myself when I heal other people. Yes, that's true. But it's a Band-Aid. It's temporary. Because then what happens is you become reliant on healing somebody else or helping somebody else in order for you to stay kind of stable. And unfortunately, it still just stays at a certain, it's a layer deeper than just, doing some cognitive healing work or emotional work on the surface. So it's a layer deeper, but it's not deep enough when you've gotten into savior mode. Okay, because what you do is you end up setting up this cycle of self-sabotage when you're at this point. Okay. Yes, Rebecca, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, see, that's beautiful. I love that. You're learning that the world is not broken. That is such a beautiful way of saying it, because you're disempowering other people when you go into savior mode. We just talked about learned helplessness, right? Don't encourage that in other people, right? We want to empower the world. We want other people to feel like they can be their best selves and like they have the resources and the skills and the tools to be able to move forward. And if we're going to save them, we're giving them the message that they can't do it on their own. It's a lack of confidence in their ability. The best thing you can do is to give them that vote of confidence. You got this. I know you've got this. If you need skills or tools, resources that you either don't have access to or you don't remember or you don't know, feel free to ask. I'm happy to help. But I know you got this. I know you'll get through it. I know you can figure it out. And ultimately, it's because you don't feel that way yourself. So that's why you want to turn to yourself and say, like, okay, well, how can I give myself the same message of, I know you got this. I know you can figure it out. You've been here before. This is why I love tapping, because you can say, I want to save this person. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I hope this person can make it through. Why? Why are you so worried about them making it through? Because you want that vote of confidence for yourself. Because you want to know that there's possibility. You want to know that there's hope. You want to know that it's possible. One of the very simple tools that I will leave you with is that when you're feeling guilty about something, I want you to just shift it immediately into gratitude. Thank you so much to the situation or to the person for either giving this much to me if they've done something for you and then you feel guilty because you haven't done something back. Thank you so much. I'm so appreciative. I'm actually so overflowing with love for you right now because you did this for me or because you offered this to me, that I'm just going to be profusely thankful and just offer you love and expand my capacity to love you even more and love myself even more. Or showing gratitude and appreciation for the situation arising so that your awareness could be heightened and so that you could learn more and dive deeper and feel more free and in touch with yourself more intimately. It's an invitation. The guilt is an invitation to get to know yourself more intimately, know yourself more deeply, expand your capacity to love, adjust your value system, lower your expectations, and appreciate. Okay? So, a couple comments here. Yes, they are. Your messages to others are always for you, 100%. I'm not doing cards today, Kitty, but thank you so much for being here. So, I am here live every single Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. UK, talking about all sorts of therapeutic and mental health topics that come up for us from the wisdom of the Akash, from the perspective of divine intelligence. If you guys want to know how to open your Akashic Records, come to a free workshop. I have a free workshop on Tuesday night at 7:30 Eastern via Zoom. I put the link in the description of this video. We're going to open our Akashic Records, and it is so yummy. This practice is so yummy because we're doing tuning the physical body, which includes your emotions, because our emotions are existing in our physical body, right? They're also energetic. They kind of cross both boundaries. But we are going to be using some sacred chants. And if you have a tuning fork, you can bring that along. And I'm going to show you how with this practice, you can literally shift your emotional or physical discomfort in minutes. In minutes. And if this is something that you practice and a tool that you continue to use and have in your toolbox and that you continue to return to, you can keep returning to that state at any time. And we always have access to our voices. So this is a tool that you have access to all the time. So join me for that. It's called Tuning the Physical Body. I can't wait to see you guys there. You'll learn how to open your Akashic Records, how to bring through messages in that space, and just join in the yum. I'm all about the yum. Okay? I love you guys. Have a beautiful week, and I'll see you next Friday. Thanks for being here. Bye.